The biggest union representing federal workers in Canada says the separatist or sovereigntist Parti Québécois, pick your word, is the best one to represent its members' needs. The Public Service Alliance believes the PQ would do the best job protecting provincial public service jobs and programs. But is the union's position a de facto endorsement of the PQ and by extension an endorsement of Quebec independence? Let's find out about that and a very controversial issue of a Public Service Alliance of Canada banner being carried by a plane being taken down by the RCMP. We got two big issues to talk about with the Public Service Alliance of Canada's Vice President. Larry Rousseau is here. Mr. Rousseau, good to see you.
How are you, Evan?
Well, I'm good. Let me understand it. How are you advising your members to vote in the Quebec election?
I'd like to clear up something, and there's been some confusion. In the past, the PSAC on occasion has endorsed candidates. In the National Capital Region, as on the Outaouais side, as well as the Quebec region, we came to, both vice presidents for both regions, we came to a consensus that for this election, we would not endorse, we would not support, we would not recommend. What we would do is assess, as you very eloquently put it at the beginning of your segment here, that we would assess which parties best defend the interests of our members in terms of workers' rights, public services, and unionization in general.
And who comes out on top under that criteria?
First and a close second. First is the Parti Québécois, and then Québec Solidaire. Two progressive parties in Quebec who happen to be sovereigntist. Third was the Liberal Party of Quebec, who would not commit, refused to commit in the Outaouais not to cut public services, and the coalition who did commit that if they were elected and if they form government, they will be cutting public services.
Someone might watch this and say, you represent federal workers, and they say they're not, they're separatist parties who just happen to support your needs. In other words, how can you essentially use that analysis and tell your members the best place to plant your vote for your own interests is with a party, and I'll just show you. Here's the PQ's current election platform that we translated. This is what they say. We believe that Quebec must become a sovereign country and make its own decisions and not wait for others in Ottawa to decide for us. I mean, you represent a union with members across Canada. How do you reconcile that kind of rationalizing on one side with a party that wants to separate from Canada?
This election is not about separation. Voting the current government out of Mr. Charest and voting an opposition in that happens to be sovereigntist, we've been through this for the past 36 years.
But can you split hairs? They are very clear. They want to make demands in order to inevitably move to become their own country. How do you reconcile that?
Because our members in Quebec, as well as the population in Quebec, knows very well that they're going into the booths today to vote for a government that can have integrity, that can have transparency, that will handle the public finances well, and they can trust. They're throwing out.
But it's a federal union, and how can you separate the interest that they may serve you on that analysis from the fact that their fundamental goal is to become their own country? Don't you think the rest of the country allows you to split hairs like that?
Well, we've been doing that, as I said, for the past 36 years. Quebec voters have been going back and forth between an opposition. When the government in power is a sovereigntist, the opposition is federalist. When the government is federalist, the opposition is sovereigntist. Quebecers are sophisticated enough to know the difference. What is really preoccupying our members and the people in the Outaouais are jobs.
So you can really say with this, you can say that you don't support a separatist party?
Absolutely.
But you're telling your members to vote for one?
We're not telling our members how to vote. We are providing the information that they need in order to cast their vote, but they have a wide variety of information.
You're legitimizing that vote, saying that would be the best vote.
Well, what we're saying is that what's happening right now in the National Capital Region, services are being cut at the federal level. We have thousands of members who are going to be losing their jobs over the next few years. What does that mean? They need services. The Coalition and the Liberal Party of Quebec have practically guaranteed that if they're put into power, they in turn are going to cut provincial services.
But does it send the message that you're putting your members' needs ahead? Some might argue you're putting your members' needs ahead of the fundamental needs of the country. Some would quote, you know, that George Orwell phrase that they used to use as a fellow traveler, those who were sympathetic with socialism. They said this is a fellow traveler on sovereignty/separatism. And they just can't imagine how you can make that distinction. What would your response be?
The sovereignty on most Quebec electors' list right now is down in the 8th or 9th place. The top 3 are the economy, the jobs, and the situation for services and a social safety net that they're going to need in dire times.
All right, Larry, that's fascinating. And that may be, by the way, what many voters are going through if they can make that distinction. I want to move to another issue. The RCMP was forced to take down a Public Service Alliance of Canada sponsored plane. All right, this is the banner. You can see it behind us. We focus on Stephen Harper, and it's your button hates me. This is now apparently this was flying over Gatineau Balloon Festival on Saturday, and it was forced to come down. The Prime Minister's office issued a statement today saying, "quote This is an operational decision by the RCMP, and it wasn't a political one." In other words, they didn't ask this to come down. What's your view on what happened here?
Put yourself in the pilot's position. You get a message that the RCMP has some security concerns with your plane and your banner. They're waiting for you here on the tarmac. They would like to question you. I guarantee you that 99.9% of pilots are going to interrupt their flight and come down, and the RCMP probably knew that was going to happen. So they interrupted the flight. And for the Prime Minister's office to say that it's not a political decision, I'm sorry. We've eliminated the airspace violations, none at all by NAVCAN, confirmed by NAVCAN. So what's the
Navigation Canada.
Navigation Canada. The pilot was in constant communication with the control tower. Am I outside of the restricted space? Yes, no problem. None of the NAVCAN alarms went off. So we eliminate that as a possibility. What's the other possibility? The first thing that the RCMP told us when we spoke to the RCMP was, we have a problem with the banner. What's the problem? The message. So when the RCMP...
they actually told, this is important.
They told us.
They're saying it wasn't a security risk. It wasn't that you were flying in restricted airspace. You're saying the RCMP told your union that it was the editorial message that was the problem.
They did not say that. What they said was they had concerns about the airspace. But they didn't have to bring that up with us, not even with the pilot. If they had concerns with the airspace, they take that up with the tower.
Here's what
with the tower. The tower will confirm with them if the plane violated. Once that has been eliminated, they also told us that they had problems with the banner. So when the RCMP decides to interrupt a flight of free expression, all right, in order to talk to you about your political message, that is a political decision as far as I'm concerned.
Apparently there's tape that CBC has of an RCMP officer saying that they did call NAVCAN, as you said, Larry Rousseau, and they were told that the plane had not violated airspace, and apparently the RCMP then asked, nonetheless, for the plane to land despite knowledge from NAVCAN that it had not violated restricted airspace. However, we then went to the RCMP with this, and they've just sent me a statement about minutes ago here saying, quote, we've got a board of it now. Officers on duty saw a small plane that appeared to breach the security bubble around Parliament. They asked it to land and spoke to the pilot to assess the situation. They were satisfied there was no threat and gave the green light for the plane to resume its flight. They say here, officers concluded that it was safer if this plane was not around, and they said everyday RCMP officers working on the Hill witnessed the expression of various diverse opinions. They are not concerned with these, but they take security very seriously. And again, the Prime Minister echoed that, saying it was operational. So now what do you make of what the RCMP is telling us?
Oh, it's called damage control. We have a plane flying in the sky. We've had 9/11. We know all about that. So officers on duty on the ground see a plane that may appear to be violating airspace. Hey, guess what? You call air traffic control. All right? Who's the pilot? Who's the plane belong to? What is it? It's all legit, and it's advertising a website. Go look at the website.
They actually said, I'll read you one more. I know you got to go here, Larry Rousseau, but listen. NAVCAN, this is according to the RCMP. Julie Van Duzen also got this for us. NAVCAN, I'm quoting here RCMP. NAVCAN came back with details around the fact that it had not breached airspace, the plane. However, by the time they got to the airport to ask for the plane to come down, they got 2 other sightings of the same plane with concern, so they just followed through with their investigation. What do you make of that?
It doesn't wash. I don't accept it. You know, it's very clear that when security, the national security force has a problem with the plane flying in the air, there's protocol, and the first thing you're going to find out are the alarms going off at NAVCAN. Why do we have NAVCAN? We have NAVCAN for air traffic control. So the pilot obeyed everything he was supposed to.
Okay, so
why tell us after that you have a problem with the banner?
I have 20 seconds left to close. The Prime Minister's office said it was operational, it had nothing to do with it. The RCMP's given their explanation. You don't buy either of them. What is your what do you do now? What does the Public Service Alliance of Canada do?
Well, we've brought this out. The public wants answers. From what I'm hearing from our members and from the public right now is that we want to know who made the determination, and someone has to be accountable for this.
All right, Larry Rousseau from the Public Service Alliance of Canada on a couple of issues here. Very interesting, weighing in on the Quebec election and weighing in on this banner as well. You haven't heard the end of that.